The legacy that this Polish refugee would leave behind was unimaginable. He followed his aspirations in spite of all the difficulties, and he developed his passion into one of the most recognizable watch companies in the world. In Piasecki, Poland, Antoni Norbert de Patek was born in 1812. He was raised amid an era of hardships. He enlisted in the Polish cavalry at the age of 16 and participated in the Polish-Russian War. He was awarded Poland's highest military decoration, the Virtuti Militari, for the act of heroism towards the end of the war. But later that year, the Polish revolt was put down, forcing Antoni and his comrades to flee to Western Europe. He first lived in France, but due to an unfavorable ruling from the French government, he was forced to relocate again. He made his home in Geneva, Switzerland this time. Antoni was drawn to the history of watchmaking in Geneva, and, as a refugee, he frequently hung out with other immigrants. It was not long before he met Polish watchmaker François Czapek, who was descended from the Czechs. After exchanging ideas and dreams regarding watches, Patek Czapek and Company was established on May 1st, 1839. Antoni had no idea that this would be the start of a long legacy, although without François. Despite the success of their business, Antoni and François parted ways due to growing disagreements. Now, Antoni was searching for a new companion again. It believed he had discovered someone special when he visited the 1844 French Industrial Exposition. Antoni got to know the talented French watchmaker Jean-Adrian Philippe during the fair in 1844. Jean's family was in the watchmaking business. He was born in La Bazochois, France in 1815. He moved out of his hometown to refine his watchmaking abilities when he was 18. He traveled to London in pursuit of excellence, where he spent 3 years working for a reputable watchmaker. He made Versailles his home after returning to France, but sadly, business was not up to par. Relentlessly persistent in his ambitions, he relocated to Paris. He had a gift for experimenting with objects and was full of ideas. He finally created a system that allowed pocket watches to be set without the use of a separate key. It was a significant event, and his life was forever changed by showcasing this patent-pending invention at the Paris Industrial Exposition. He not only received a gold medal, but Antoni also took notice of him. 1 year following their meeting, Antoni broke off his collaboration with François, and Jean became the team's technical director. They founded a new business under the name Patek & Company with a third partner, Vincent Gostkowski, and changed its name to Patek Philippe & Company in 1851. Jean oversaw the development and manufacturing of the timepieces, as well as the production methods, while Antoni focused on finding a novel marketing approach. Would their diverse working methods complement each other, even though they thought their watches would be among the most sought-after timepieces in the world? Jean was more motivated by his passion for watches and the advancement of the underlying technologies, whereas Antoni was more interested in exquisite craftsmanship and ornate ornamentation. His goal wasn't just to create exquisite pieces of art with stunning aesthetics, he also wanted them to function flawlessly. Business prospered over the next 20 years, but Antoni's anemia had long since taken its toll, and he died in 1877. He was 65 years old. At age 20, Leon, Antoni's son, expressed his disinterest in being a part of the organization. Thus, in return for an annual payment of 10,000 francs, he gave up all rights. In the years that followed, Patek Philippe made a name for itself by taking part in multiple international displays and earning gold prizes. Their alliance with Gondolo and Labarau of Rio de Janeiro was one of their most noteworthy collaborations during this period. Throughout their nearly 50-year partnership, Patek Philippe experienced many ups and downs. Almost 1/3 of all Patek Philippe watches were sold in retail stores by Gondolo and Labarau during a period of economic hardship and impending global conflict in Europe. Sales were so impressive, in fact, that Patek even came to be associated with the word watch in Brazil. Even if it wasn't a Patek Philippe at all, you bought a Patek instead of a watch. Sadly, Jean only survived to witness 20 years of successful collaboration until his death in 1892. He had already given his post to his youngest son, Joseph-Émile Philippe, 2 years prior. Adrian Patek, Joseph's son, was the last member of the Patek or Philippe families to lead the business after Joseph's passing. Even worse, by 1932, the worldwide recession had put the company in financial jeopardy. They were in desperate need of a buyer. Also referred to as Black Tuesday, the Wall Street crash of 1929 was one of the worst stock market meltdowns in American history. It marked the start of the global Great Depression, which lasted for 12 years. Not surprisingly, Patek Philippe and Company suffered financially as a result of numerous consumers who failed to fulfill their payment obligations. The directors realized that to keep themselves from being acquired by a competitor, they needed to take immediate action. Thus, brothers Charles and John Stern were hired by them. The Stern brothers weren't just any ordinary strangers. They already managed a business called Cadran Stern Frères, which manufactured high-grade dials. They were one of Patek Philippe's preferred suppliers. Recognizing a promising commercial prospect and desiring to uphold the Swiss watchmaking customs, the Stern brothers not only assisted Patek Philippe but also took a share in the company in 1932. And they had fully acquired it by the next year. They appointed renowned watchmaker and horological expert John Pfister as the company's chief executive, because they didn't feel ready to take over the reins completely. They started working right away, and they launched Reference 96 before the year 1932 was out. Henry Stern, Charles Stern's son, joined the business to help his father, who was named chairman of the board of directors in 1934. However, a member of the Stern family from the third generation had also started to climb the ladder. In 1938, Philippe, Henry's son, was born. Although part of his childhood was in the USA, his European roots made him well knowledgeable of watchmaking traditions in Geneva, while also being familiar with modern trends long before they were adopted in Europe. He had a strong interest in Patek Philippe, although at first he decided to pursue a career in computer technology. He had to familiarize himself with every aspect of the business before he could finally join Patek Philippe in Geneva in 1966. Philippe Stern's experiences in the computer industry started to show themselves in the watch business as well. After a never-ending cycle of ever faster and more radical technological advancements, Patek Philippe would soon find itself in an unforeseen crisis, much like Rolex and all other Swiss watchmakers. You see, there was something known as the Quartz crisis occurring between 1970 and 1980. Quartz watches used batteries rather than mechanical movements. They were more precise and cost less to make. While the first Japanese quartz wristwatches were quite expensive, prices began to drop as production costs decreased in the 1970s. Quartz watches replaced mechanical timepieces all across the world, and the Swiss watch industry was destroyed by their widespread use. Philippe was in the thick of things when he was named CEO in 1977. He saw that genuine high-end products were necessary for vintage mechanical timepieces to have any chance of succeeding, and without delay, he started hiring engineers to completely revamp Patek Philippe. Though the watches would henceforth be created using precise designs, the dedication to artisanship would remain. This would ensure Patek Philippe's capacity to repair all of its own watches, in addition to enhancing the quality and guaranteeing the reproducibility of the components. One of Patek Philippe's fundamental principles had always been inventiveness. To them, maintaining tradition never meant rejecting innovation. Philippe Stern famously said, "Everything that a hand can do better than a machine, we will do. But when a machine can assist the work of a person, we will not adhere blindly to tradition." Henry Stern gave Philippe the president in 1993, and the next year, Ferry, Philippe's son, became the fourth generation to work for the company. Today, Patek Philippe is recognized globally as a top producer of exquisite mechanical timepieces, and it is considered one of the most famous watchmaking names. Its history dates back about 2 centuries, and although many watch brands assert to be older, the majority of them stopped operations along the road and were later re-established by foreigners. Conversely, Patek Philippe has been privately owned since its founding and has made efforts ever since. Patek Philippe has never made excessive use of showy marketing. Unlike other brands, it doesn't seek endorsements from well-known rappers and football players. Furthermore, even though they may brag that Queen Victoria was one of their clientele, they have typically avoided celebrity endorsements. However, this does not imply that famous people avoid them either. It seems like everyone loves to buy a good Patek Philippe, from Ed Sheeran to Jay-Z. But at Patek Philippe, they most likely would argue that context is important when interpreting the word own. Like their slogan, you never actually own a Patek Philippe. You merely look after it for the next generation. Patek Philippe prides itself on being Geneva's last independently owned watchmaker. The Stern family has owned the brand since they purchased it in 1932 when Charles and John Stern did, and because of its independence, the business has been able to follow its own path and take charge of its own fate without ever sacrificing its long-term goals. And there you have it, the remarkable story of Patek Philippe, a watchmaking company that has endured for almost 2 centuries, from its founding by Polish refugee Antoni de Patek and gifted watchmaker Jean-Adrian Philippe, to overcoming immense challenges like the Great Depression and the Quartz crisis. Patek Philippe has shown incredible resilience while maintaining its dedication to fine craftsmanship and innovation. Now owned and run by the Stern family since the 1930s, Patek Philippe remains one of the last independent Swiss watchmakers in Geneva. Its beautiful timepieces are coveted by watch aficionados and celebrities alike as fine examples of mechanical artistry. Were you aware of the fascinating past of Patek Philippe? Let us know in the comments if you own a Patek Philippe watch or aspire to one day. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Brandcast for more fascinating stories about iconic companies. What other business backstories would you be interested in hearing about? Let us know, and thanks for watching.